stadium hasn't even erupted yet, but something is already happening. Before the first shot, before the first tackle, before the first scream caught in the throat, there's a moment when football seems to suspend time. The players line up in the tunnel, the camera searches for the eyes of those who know they're not just entering a game, and the crowd feels they might be witnessing a night capable of changing an entire history. It's in this kind of heavy silence, almost like the second before a penalty kick, that the question arises: what if the United States is closer to a historic campaign than almost anyone imagines? For decades, when the world talked about the World Cup, thoughts turned to jerseys with legendary weight. Brazil, Argentina, France, Germany, Spain, Italy. Teams that carry titles, scars, geniuses, tears, and goals that have spanned generations. The United States almost always appeared elsewhere in the conversation. They were seen as a growing project, a powerhouse in infrastructure, a country of great stadiums and a huge market, but still trying to find their soul within the most beloved game on the planet. But football doesn't only respect tradition, it also respects the moment, courage, environment, and hunger. A World Cup isn't won on paper. It's played on the grass, where boots slip, defenders hesitate, goalkeepers decide in milliseconds, and a striker can transform distrust into delirium with a single touch of the ball. How many teams have arrived without the weight of favorites and left carrying respect? How many campaigns began as doubts and ended as eternal memories? In 2026, the United States will not simply take the field to participate in a celebration. They will enter surrounded by expectation, pressure, and a rare opportunity. The country will host part of the largest World Cup ever organized, and each game could serve as a public test. With each pass, a question. With each victory, new pressure. With each advance, the feeling that perhaps the impossible is just waiting for someone to have the courage to challenge it. American football doesn't need to promise the title to grab attention. It needs to show it can compete when the stadium shakes, when the opponent has more history, when the ball is heavy, and when the world expects it to retreat. Because perhaps the real battle of 2026 isn't just against other national teams. Perhaps it's against the old idea that the United States still doesn't belong at the emotional center of world football. And when that doubt enters the field, every minute becomes a trial, every play becomes a symbol, and every game can be the beginning of a turnaround that no one was prepared to witness. Every fan knows this feeling. The television is on before the game, the jersey is put on early, the family conversations trying to predict the score, someone saying that today will be the day, another remembering an old defeat that still stings. Football enters people's homes before it even enters the field. It occupies the table, the sofa, the street, the bar, the memory. Before the ball even rolls, there is already hope. And when the World Cup arrives, that hope grows to the size of an entire country. Playing at home means carrying all of that inside the stadium. It's not just about knowing the pitch, the weather, or the city. It's about feeling that each stand has a familiar voice. It's about realizing that the moment the team presses hard, the crowd rises up along with them. It's about understanding that a courageous tackle can ignite the crowd almost like a goal. In a World Cup, the advantage of being at home doesn't just appear in the statistics. It appears in the eyes of the player who hears his name being shouted when he's tired. It appears in the defender who clears a difficult ball and feels the stadium roar as if he'd saved the match. It appears in the striker who misses a chance, lowers his head for a second, but hears the crowd calling him back into the game. This force can change destinies. A team under pressure can grow when it feels supported. An unfavorable score can spark a comeback when the fans believe in the team even before the players themselves. Anyone who has witnessed a comeback knows that it rarely starts with a goal. Often, it begins with a small play, a tackle won, an unexpected save, a daring substitution, a ball recovered in midfield. Suddenly, the stadium's atmosphere changes. The opponent notices. The game, which seemed under control, begins to slip away. This is the power the United States could have in 2026. It won't just be a team chasing a result. It will be a group surrounded by children, families, new fans, longtime supporters, and millions of people ready to transform curiosity into excitement. The pressure will be enormous, but pressure can also become fuel. The same noise that frightens can push forward. The same demands that weigh heavily can awaken a team. And perhaps that's where the danger lies for the opponents, because facing an organized team is already difficult. Facing an organized team at home, with the crowd growing with every play, is a different story. When the stadium starts to believe, even the most experienced opponent understands that the match has ceased to be merely technical. It has become atmosphere, nerves, an emotional battle. And in a World Cup, when emotion and opportunity meet, an ordinary game can transform into the beginning of an unforgettable campaign. There's a game that almost nobody sees. It happens before the ball leaves the center circle, before the first pass, before the first collision between two bodies vying for space. It's in the warm-up, in the player's gaze observing the pitch, in the coach's gesture pointing to a zone on the field, in the silence of someone who knows the match has already begun in their mind. Football isn't born with the whistle. It's born in the invisible tension that precedes the whistle. It is in this silent territory that a generation shows whether it is ready or not. Talent enchants, but maturity sustains. A dribble can thrill the crowd, but a correct decision at the 80-minute mark can save an entire campaign. Players accustomed to big stages learn that the game is not just about speed and technique. It is also about patience, reading the game, emotional control, and the courage to choose the right pass when everyone expects a spectacular play. What if the difference between falling early and making history lies precisely in those details that most ignore? In the midfielder who closes a passing lane before danger appears, in the fullback who notices the space behind the opponent, in the striker who doesn't touch the ball for 20 minutes but drags two defenders and opens the way for another to decide the game. How many matches are won by gestures that don't get caught in the highlights? The United States enters 2026 with players who have already felt the pressure of demanding stadiums, intense coaches, and opponents who don't forgive naivety. This experience matters because the World Cup doesn't offer time to learn slowly. A positioning error can lead to a goal. A poorly executed clearance can result in elimination. A lapse in concentration during a set piece can turn months of preparation into locker room silence. The jersey also carries a different weight when a team starts to believe it can go further. At first, it seems light, laden with hope. Then, with each victory, it becomes heavier. The fans demand more. The press demands more. The opponent shows more respect. The coach needs to decide whether to protect the team or take risks. Retreating might seem prudent. Attacking might seem like madness. But in a World Cup sometimes, the right courage at the right moment changes the destiny of a nation. And when that moment arrives, who will have the composure to decide? Who will ask for the ball when the stadium is silent? Who will transform pressure into movement, fear into concentration, and opportunity into a goal? The answer won't just be in the names on the starting lineup. It will be in the players' minds, in the coach's reading of the game, in the weight of the shirt, and in that fraction of a second when football ceases to be a plan and becomes destiny. When the World Cup reaches its most dangerous point, football ceases to seem like an ordinary game. The stadium feels heavy. The sound of the crowd not only accompanies the match, it invades the players' bodies. In the locker room, before entering the field, there is a tension that no camera can fully capture. The boots are already laced, the jersey is already on, but each athlete knows that in a few minutes, a wrong decision can become a bitter memory forever. It is in this environment that strategy meets fear. The coach looks at the tactical board, but also at the faces. He knows that it's not enough to choose 11 players. He needs to choose those who can handle the argue moment, those who don't hide when the opponent presses, those who can breathe when the entire stadium seems to hold its breath before a decisive free kick. A game can be decided by an unexpected substitution, by a change in positioning, by an underdog striker who comes on in the second half and finds the ball that nobody expected. The history of football is full of such moments. Favorite teams have fallen to teams that seem too small to pose a threat. Champions have been eliminated by a counterattack. Goalkeepers have become heroes after an improbable save. Criticized players have changed tournaments with a single shot. Football insists on reminding us that no prediction survives intact once the ball starts rolling. Therefore, the 2026 World Cup could open a special path for those who know how to grow during the competition. With more teams and more possibilities, the tournament becomes a long road, full of hidden curves. A group considered accessible can turn into a trap. A draw may seem like a failure, but later prove essential. A narrow victory can ignite a confidence capable of changing everything. The important thing is not just to start well. It's to learn quickly, correct mistakes, and arrive stronger for the next game. On the pitch, everything happens at breakneck speed. A loose ball in midfield can turn into a counterattack. A poorly defended corner kick can change the score. A vertical pass can tear through an entire defense. And when the goal comes, the stadium's atmosphere changes. The bench rushes to the sidelines. The coach clenches his fists. The crowd erupts. The opposing team feels the blow. It is in this territory of noise, pressure, and unpredictability that the United States will need to prove its worth. Talent, fan support, or opportunity will not be enough. They will need to transform every detail into an advantage. Because in a World Cup, fate rarely announces when it will change. Sometimes it appears in a loose ball in the penalty area, in an unexpected mistake, in an impossible save, or in a shot from someone almost no one expected to see as a hero. There comes a moment in every great match when the body begins to struggle, but the soul insists on continuing. Legs grow heavy, breath becomes short, the clock seems to speed up, and each player understands that they are no longer just fighting for space on the field. They are fighting for a place in history. It is at this point that a World Cup reveals who can withstand the weight of the moment and who crumbles when the pressure mounts. Imagine the United States in a crucial game, already in the most grueling phase of the tournament. The score is tight. The crowd sings, but nervously. The opponent has tradition, knows how to control the tempo, knows how to slow the game down, knows how to turn each ball into a small eternity. The American coach looks at the bench and realizes he needs to act. Sticking to the plan might be safe, but perhaps not enough. Changing. It might open the path to victory, but it could also expose the team to the final blow. Then comes the substitution. A tired player leaves, almost without strength. Another enters, carrying the responsibility of changing the game in a few minutes. The ball rolls again, and the stadium seems to sense that something different is about to happen. A pass crosses the middle. The opposing defense hesitates. The striker sprints. For a second, everything seems clear. He touches the ball past the goalkeeper. The net ripples. The stands explode. But the celebration stops. The referee puts his hand to his ear. The goal is reviewed. The entire stadium plunges into a heavy silence. This is the kind of moment that separates an average team from a mature one. After a disallowed goal, many teams lose control. They complain, lose focus, leave space. But a team that wants to go far needs to transform frustration into focus. It needs to get back into the game as if nothing happened, even knowing that something huge just slipped away. And football almost always tests that courage. Soon after comes the rival counterattack, a simple mistake in midfield, a ball lost in the worst possible place. The opposing striker breaks free, the stadium holds its breath, and the goalkeeper must decide the fate of a campaign in less than a second. He leaps, stretches his arm, and makes an impossible save. The ball goes out of play, and the fans begin to believe again. From that point on, the game's intensity changes. Fear still exists, but hope begins to take up more space. The team presses, the fans push, the coach shouts from the sidelines. Every cross feels like the last. Every corner kick feels like a promise. Every tackle won feels like a warning that the story isn't over yet. This is how unforgettable campaigns are born. When all seems lost, but someone still runs. When a mistake almost destroys the dream, but the response comes with courage. When the fans, even wounded, continue to believe. If the United States wants to make 2026 a landmark year, they will need to experience exactly this kind of night. A night when soccer doesn't forgive weakness, but rewards those who persevere to the end. Because before the final whistle, while the ball is still in play, there will always be one last chance to change destiny.